This is Larry King, and I'm here with Sandy Gallagher, the winner of an auctioned interview to raise funds for the Unstoppable Foundation. Very happy to be able to help with this worthy cause, and thankful that you bid. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You started as a banking attorney, right?
That's right.
Doing what?
I did bank mergers and acquisitions and IPOs and, public company work. Pretty complex stuff.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in the Northwest, in the Seattle area, and then I went to law school in Washington, D.C., and I worked on Wall Street and in Washington, D.C. Practiced for about 22 years before.
As a lawyer?
Yeah, before I switched careers.
Did you have trials, or were you specialized in the banking end?
I specialize in the banking end, banking and securities.
You worked with Fortune 500 companies?
I worked from all the way to the biggest banks in the world to the littlest banks in the world.
What did you like about that?
I love putting the deal together. I really love putting the deal together, and I liked working with the executives. I liked to get involved in, what their motivation was and help them figure out a way to do it.
You liked the suits?
I didn't like the suits.
But
No.
you liked the concept that, well, they're all different kind of the work they were entailed in,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, like when I was on Wall Street, I was working with the biggest banks, and then I came out to the Northwest and I practiced with my dad, and we were working with the regional community banks. And it was a totally different experience, completely different.
And what were you doing for the banks?
Well, I was helping them on the corporate and transactional side. So I would
Loans?
No, not the loan side. That was more the operational side. So I would go into the boardrooms and I would advise the directors and I would advise the executives. I'd help them structure deals. I'd help groups that wanted to form banks, create the bank, raise the capital, help them go public, help them with the SEC regulations.
Where do you get training for that?
Well, I got it pretty much after I popped out of the womb from my dad, because he was a banking and securities lawyer, and I idolized him, and I just wanted to follow in his footsteps.
When you do that kind of work,
Yeah.
how are fees based?
Well, that's an issue that I always had a challenge with. The fees are based usually hourly. You charge them by the hour. And they're pretty big numbers. I started out on Wall Street, so what I was charging per hour just out of law school was pretty amazing. But I always wanted to charge fixed fees. I didn't want to get charged by the hour, because what's the motivation? Put more hours in. And I wanted to get results. So I always had opposition on that.
Yeah, lawyers is hours.
And to this day, whenever I hire a lawyer, I cannot stand getting those bills. 15 minutes on the phone. It's like...
Yeah, my Bert Fields is my lawyer.
Yeah.
But that's that old joke about this lawyer dies and he goes to heaven, and St. Peter said, "You lived a long and fulfilling life." He said, "I was only 43. And I was checking your timesheet."
That's right.
Were you happy in doing that?
I was. And then I realized there's something much bigger for me.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah.
There's talk that we have too many lawyers. You agree?
Uh-oh. Plead the fifth. Too many lawyers. You know what? I think we have too few good lawyers. I think we have too few lawyers that mix common sense, a strong desire to help the client, and talent and ability.
And why is that?
I think because the motivation isn't there to be that. I think the motivation isn't strong enough to mix those qualities.
Is that the law school's fault?
I think it probably is the law school. It's what the clients tolerate. It's what the law firms instill in the young lawyers. There are always exceptions. There are some incredible lawyers that I know personally, but there are a lot that I don't think are very good.
Do you agree that a good lawyer takes his job home?
Well, yes, in the sense that I think if you're a good lawyer, your client's case is in your heart.
Yeah.
It's in
That's
your
what I
heart.
meant.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the good doctor cares about that patient.
Yeah. So I always loved getting to know the client so well, because I viewed myself as part of the team. I wasn't like, a vendor.
Now, you came to the Unstoppable Foundation through Bob Proctor, right?
Yes.
I've interviewed Bob Proctor.
Yes.
And he's a coach on success, right?
Right.
How do you know him?
Well, this is when I started to see there was a bigger picture for my life than being a lawyer. In August 2006, I was invited to a management seminar, and I thought it was just a traditional, leadership type management seminar.
Did you go to a lot of those?
Yeah, I love that kind of thing. And I headed up my practice group, so I was always looking for ways to be better at what I was doing. And I went to this seminar. I was in Vancouver, Washington. And I'll never forget it. It started on a Friday night. And I go in the seminar room and I sit down, and out walks on stage Bob Proctor. I didn't even know who he was, but the minute he started talking, it was like someone took my head off, shook it around, and put it back on. And everything I thought was true was just like upside down. And then, I'm physically in the seminar room, but in my mind, I'm just racing through the boardrooms and the executive offices and thinking, oh my God, if they had this information, that deal would have worked out better. They would have got the results that they wanted. And I was fascinated.
Well, he was doing what, a Tony Robbins kind of thing?
No, it's very, very different. He was talking about
Science of Getting Rich.
It was called The Science of Getting Rich, this particular seminar, which I thought was really a strange concept when I first heard of it. But what he was the science of getting rich, like what does that mean? But what he was really doing was talking about who and what you are. Who and what you are, in a way that I had never heard. And he was saying things that I had always believed, but were so contrary to what the masses thought. I grew up in Catholic schools, and he was talking about how we're spiritual beings, and how we always want to expand, we want to grow, we want to be more, do more, have more. And I remember sitting there in the seminar thinking, oh my God, there's nothing wrong with me. Because I remember the nuns, like smack you on the hand. Sandra, aren't you ever going to be satisfied? Isn't it ever enough? And I was like, no, I always want more. And I came to realize that you can be happy, you can be grateful, but you can be extremely dissatisfied. Dissatisfied because you want to introduce yourself to a part of yourself you didn't even know was there. And so it really turned something on inside of me. And
that one night?
It was actually a 2.5-day seminar. But that one night, I swear it wasn't about 15 minutes into it. And I can tell you what table I was sitting at, what I was wearing, what he was wearing, what the stage looked like, because it was so transformational. It was just like, it was just like, oh my God.
What was he saying?
First off, I went in the seminar room thinking, okay, I'm successful, I'm doing great, I got a great law practice, great life. And he said, for most people, when their heart stops beating, it'll be a mere formality. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. And then he said, for most people, he quoted Earl Nightingale, he said, most people tiptoe through life hoping to make it safely to death. And I thought, wow. And then he quoted Bill Gove. You ever heard of Bill Gove? He was like...
Earl Nightingale, I knew.
Okay. Oh, cool. So Bill Gove was like the Frank Sinatra of public speaking. And he is who mentored and taught Bob Proctor how to speak. And he quoted Bill Gove saying, if I want to be free, I got to be me. Not the me I think you think I should be. Not the me I think my wife thinks I should be. Not the me I think my kids think I should be. If I want to be free, I got to be me. And I better know who me is. And it was like a bucket of ice got thrown on my head. And I was just like, whoa, am I really doing what I really want to do with my life? And then he kept saying, what do you want? What do you really want? And I wrote down in a teeny tiny print so nobody would see. And I said, I want to be in the inner circle of this company. I want to create a program with Bob Proctor to bring in these companies I've worked with. And I want to be his closest advisor. And I slammed it shut, and inside it's like, who do you think you are? You're just an attorney. I mean, you do bank mergers, for God's sake, and the mind's just... But he said at the end of the weekend, he said, for most of you, you'll have come up with a great idea. You'll be inspired, but you'll leave the idea right here in this room. And I just decided I wasn't going to do that. I didn't want to leave the idea in the room. And I just spoke to the seminar room, and I said, I don't know how, but I'm going to do this.
And how did you do it?
Well, I studied and I learned a lot about how we make big change.
Did you meet Proctor?
Did I what?
Meet Proctor.
Yeah, see, at this time, I decided I'm going to create this program with it. He didn't even know who I was. If you had asked him who's Sandy Gallagher, no clue. I actually started creating the program. I mapped the whole thing out. I designed it. I came up with the name, Thinking into Results, sketched out 12 modules, did all that. And it wasn't until June of 2007, so this was August 2006, in June of 2007, I got the chance to meet with him. And he had heard about what I wanted to do, and he had done some research, and he's like, he was pretty impressed with my legal background and finance background, and he said, okay, here's the deal. And he said, this is how we're going to do it. And
what do you mean we?
Well, meaning me, meaning a big financial investment for me, meaning I was going to do all the work, I was going to fund the whole production, I was going to inject a nice hefty six-figure sum to own a % of this company we were forming.
You and he would form this company?
Yes, but I would run the whole thing, do the whole thing.
And he put up money?
No, I did. He put up the brand, he put up the name, he put up the content, and I got him to record the program. And it is now all over the world, Thinking into Results. And it's...
Thinking into Results.
Thinking into Results, yeah.
And what do you do with this?
Well...
You speak? What do you...
Well, this is just a small part of the transformation that happened. I created that program. In the process, I looked for opportunities to help. He had 19 companies at the time, and I could see that he needed some fiscal direction and help and structure type issues.
So he needed help.
He needed help. So I found the need, and I volunteered. It was actually almost 3 years where I just volunteered. I helped any way I could. And one day he came to me and he said, you know, I'm really grateful for the changes you've made in the company, and I'd like you to come in and run the group of companies. And I said, well, on one condition. And he said, what's that? I said, you got to do exactly what I say. I need your backing 100% because I'm going to make some big changes. You might not like it. He gave me his word. And I came in and he said, well, what do you want to get compensated? And I said, I want to get compensated for the results that I get. So we'll see what results I get, and then we'll figure out what I'll get compensated. And I set about to make some big changes. And it was about 3 years after that, I made some huge changes, really positive changes. And he offered me a partnership in the company, and we rebranded into the Proctor Gallagher Institute.
Not like Procter & Gamble.
No.
The goal of this is what? How do I benefit from your institute?
Well,
or how does the public?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, one of the big things that I learned right from the get-go is that our educational system doesn't really teach us how to get the results we want. That's why you can find people with all kinds of degrees, all kinds of education that are broke, they can't find jobs, you know, that just aren't living the life they want. Maybe they've got it in some areas, but they don't have it in finance, or they don't have it in relationships, you know, but their career's taken off great. And so, you know, you've got all kinds of programs out there that say, we can help you, you know, personal development, success programs. But a lot of them don't work, because they're based on the education model, which is give you more information, give you more information. Well, you're just gathering information. What you gather in your mind, the information you lodge in there, is not going to get the results that you want in life. The results come from your conditioned way of thinking. And, you know, Bob, if you recall from the interviews you have with him, he was no formal education, no real business experience. As he says it, he was going downhill and gaining speed. I mean, he was really losing. And he came into information in a different way of thinking, and then he started to win. He went from $4,000 a year to over $1 million a year in under 5 years. And then he was so fascinated, he had to know why, so he started to study it. And that's where he really gained a deep, deep, deep understanding of paradigms, conditioned way of thinking, why we do what we do. You know, it's like you're genetically conditioned. That's why you look like your relatives. And you're environmentally conditioned. That's why you eat the same foods that your family eats. That's why you speak the same language. Well, that same thing goes on in every aspect of our life. It controls almost everything we do. And so unless and until we understand that, we're not going to have a big difference in our life. And so we get people to understand how that conditioning was formed and how to change it. It's like your self-image. If you're a young kid and you go off to school and you think you're just not that bright, well, you're not going to get good grades. And then you're going to look at the grades and you're going to say, well, I'm not that smart. And then you go through life and it's just reaffirming that you live a mediocre life.
Is there a science to this?
You know, there is a science to it. I mean, it's all operates on universal laws. There is a science to it. There's a great book called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, and he said you don't get rich by doing certain things. You get rich by doing things in a certain way. You know, it's like I studied you a little bit. I did some research on you. And, you know, you weren't born with a silver spoon, and your dad died when you were just, what, 9 years old? Yeah. 9 years old? And then...
on relief.
Yeah. You're on relief, but you got fascinated with the radio. And you said in one of your books, you said, I would wake up to the radio, I'd go to sleep with the radio, and in my deepest baritone voice, I would be saying, you know, what the broadcaster was saying. You were doing what's called visioneering. It's not daydreaming, it's not wishful thinking. It's where you get a clear picture in your mind of what you want to do, and then you take action, first by mixing it with emotion. Like, you know how fascinated you were with the radio because you couldn't see what was going on, so your imagination was kicked into high gear? So that's what you do with visioneering. It's a mental exercise.
I didn't know I was doing it.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're what Bob would call an unconscious competent. And so what we teach people to be is a conscious competent, so that you literally get a picture in your mind, like that program I wanted to create with Bob. I got it in my mind. Everyone around me is telling me, have you fallen out of a tree? Are you crazy? You're going to leave your law practice? And I would just, crystal clear, I'd see people come up to me and tell me how the program helped change their life.
My goal was never financial. That was a result of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Is your goal here, all the seminars and everything you teach, financial? Is that the road?
No, I think that finances...
Getting rich is rich money?
No, like the book is called The Science of Getting Rich, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. But rich is a very broad concept. It's money if that's what you want it to be, but it's relationships, it's every aspect of your life. Now, for me, what really jazzed me was the idea of helping wake people up. You know, I realized in that seminar that I wasn't really living the life I totally wanted to live. How many people do you see like that?
Very few.
That are really living the life they want to live? Very few. And when I closed my law practice, I sent a letter to all my colleagues. I sent it to 2,000 people. I had emails back like, oh, I wish I could do something like that. I wish I had that kind of passion. And 3 people said to me, I wish I could do that, but I'm going to sit here at this desk till the day I die. And they literally felt they didn't have a choice. So our goal is to help wake people up to who and what they are, so they live the life they really want to live. It's a simple concept, but not so easy to execute.
Do you still do seminars?
All over the place. We're doing a seminar next week in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's actually based on...
With Proctor?
Yep, with Proctor. Yeah, I'll be on stage teaching with him. Yeah, yeah, which I love. It's so fascinating.
Do you publish too? Or do you?
Yes, we've got, let's see, we're on our 3rd book with Tarcher Penguin, which I'm co-authoring with Bob. I've got one more I'm doing as the co-author, and then I'm coming out with a book of my own.
Do you have a website? How do people get more information?
ProctorGallagherInstitute.com.
Even though your name is before his in the alphabet, he gets the lead. Huh?
Not for long. We'll be changing that.
Now, it's a crowded field, isn't it? Seminars, self-help. How do you burst through in that field? Well,
you know, when I first wanted to switch and get into this industry, I studied it like a scientist, and I don't believe anyone out there is doing what we do. I really don't. I studied all the people in the industry, and yes, it is a crowded field, and it's a baby field. I mean, it really didn't start till Earl Nightingale in the 50s, early 60s. Yeah. But I don't believe anyone is doing what we're doing and understands paradigms and conditioning to the degree we do.
How do you get the word out?
Well, you know, we're all over the place. We do probably 2 to 3 million, mail to 2 to 3 million people a week. Bob is quite well known around the world because of The Secret. Still, that came out in 2006, and we're always just out there speaking and you know, producing programs. We've got a gazillion programs, everything from free programs to, you know, $24 a month all the way up to $25,000 or more.
You have it all down pat, or are you still learning?
Oh my gosh, I am learning so much. It's like if you went from just that August 2006 to where I am today, it's just like my whole world has expanded, and the beautiful thing is I know it's just getting going.
You ever miss the law?
You know, I don't. No, I really don't. I enjoy having lawyers work on things for me. I don't want to review another agreement ever again, but I did love it when I did it.
You have children? Are you married?
I have 6 dogs and a number of horses. I don't have any children. I was married. I'm no longer married.
No children?
No children. I couldn't have kids.
So you are focused,
yes,
right,
yes,
on career?
Yes. Yeah, but I don't really view it as career. I view it as life. I mean, it's what I'm meant to do.
Don't you miss that? Now I'm going to help you.
Okay.
Don't you miss the social aspects of life, the romance, the dining, the movies, the holding hands, the walk in the woods?
Dang. Yeah, I kind of do now that you said that. The holding hands, that sounds pretty nice. But you know, I meet so many fascinating people around the world. I have a lot of close friends. I would say much closer than before.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, and
so there's a fullness to you.
There's a real fullness to my life, and I feel I have tools to really help people. You know, before, like I would see people struggling, and I didn't know the answer. Like I could tell them how to structure a bank merger or raise capital, but I didn't understand the people element to it. I didn't understand that it was their internal thinking and their image of themselves that was really shaping the results.
If everyone does everything you want them to do, would there be people doing mundane things?
Absolutely. There would be people doing mundane things because that's what they wanted to be doing.
Because you could be happy.
Yeah, totally.
Happy being the bus driver.
Exactly. And really into it and really good at it. You know, there's a concept of leaving people with the impression of increase where they feel better off because they knew you. You can do that through anything. You can do that as the housekeeper. You can do it as the brain surgeon. You can do it as Larry King. You can do it in anything.
Gallagher, you're amazing. It's the
Thank you,
Proctor
Larry.
Gallagher Institute.
You got it.
Check us out at ProctorGallagherInstitute.com for tips, tools, and resources.